a very important problem in the sociology of Turkey, sociology of Turkish modernization, sociology of social structure in Turkey. Now, the topic is the relationship between religion and social structure. Religion, Islam, and social structure. Now, this is one of the central issues, central topics of Turkish sociology, actually, or sociology of Turkey. When you are talking about sociology of Turkey, you inevitably, at one point, or in more than one point, you have to talk about the relationship between Islam and various aspects of the social structure, like the economic aspect, political aspect, family, gender, many other aspects of social structure and its relationship with religion, as we already discussed previously as well, you know, when we were discussing the films, or when you were discussing writing your papers about the articles, when you have chosen the article. In all, actually, you know, in 2 semesters, we have been talking about this. But today, I am going to focus on the relationship between religion and social structure. But before I do, I will talk about first, very briefly, two of my professors whom you know, Sherif Mardin and Kamal Karpat, who focused on this relationship between social structure and religion, Islam. And then I will talk about my own research, a substantive, large research between 2008 and 2011, together with my all other colleagues. I will go into that. And then before that, I will talk about my 2 PhD students in Middle East Technical University, to whom I was the advisor in their PhD research. And their research was on Islam and social structure relationship. And then our own research with 3 or actually 8 other friends. And then 2 of my students, to whom I was not an advisor because one of them was in Sabancı, a PhD student at Sabancı, the other in Middle East Technical University, but they have written their thesis from our joint research. So this is the summary of what I am going to talk today. Now, I will just mention Sherif Mardin and Kamal Karpat, because you know we have focused on some of the articles. For example, the center-periphery relations. You know, we have taken it up, or I mentioned his religion and social change in modern Turkey, and especially this article, Turkish Islamic Exceptionalism, Yesterday, Today, Continuity, Rupture, Reconstruction in Operational Codes. You know, I will just mention this, and you know, my own work on religion, social structure, relationship is influenced by him. The second, Kemal Karpat, again from the first semester onward, both in the first semester and in the second semester, we have studied his, for example, 1959 book, Turkey's Politics, the Transition to a Multi-Party System, or his an inquiry into the social foundations of nationalism in Ottoman state, or his politicization of Islam in 2001, and studies in Turkish politics and society, selected articles. You know, when we were talking about continuity and change or shift, continuity and discontinuity, you know, we referred to many chapters of Kemal Karpat. Okay, so that is one important in both of these researchers are their work is included into my heritage, really, into my historical sociological heritage. Now, my students, one of my students is Ayşe Saktanber, who in 1995, when I was in Middle East Technical University, defended her thesis titled Islamic Revitalization in Turkey, an urban model of a counter society, a case study. Now, Ayşe Saktanber, in this thesis, did field work in one of the apartments, you know, in early 1990s, how the residents of that apartment complex or that gated community, kind of, and how they, the women there, especially the women there, organized study groups, and they studied Islam. They studied Quran and Sunnah and fiqh and other aspects of Islam. And with Ayşe Saktanberg's thesis, in the words of her thesis, they tried to develop, formulate and day-to-day life politics in living in a secular society. So it was really a very successful thesis. I will not claim that, you know, I took much role. She was very enterprising researcher herself. I contacted her with a friend of mine from University of Chicago, but Bekir Demirkol, he was from theology faculty of Ankara University, an expert on Islam, and finally, for example, he wrote a thesis on presidency of religious affairs, Bekir Demirkol, whom we lost a few months ago, unfortunately, from an illness. So I introduced Ayşe Saktanber to him, and you know, that was one of the entryways into that that block of buildings where people who are mostly associated at that time, you know, early 1990s, with the welfare party. You know, their husbands and also these women were women members. So that is the first one. The second one is in 1997, by Yasin Aktay, and the title is Body, Text and Identity, the Islamist Discourse of Authenticity in Islam, in modern, again, Yasin Aktay, Body, Text and Identity, the Islamist Discourse of Authenticity in Modern Turkey. Okay, in modern Turkey. Authenticity. I am just also, I am in that content page. I pronounced it wrongly, not pronounced, but alphabetically. There was a typing error, and I am correcting that in the meantime. So this one, Yasin Aktay's thesis, was mostly a textual analysis, historical, sociological, using historical texts and interpreting them. So in the title, Body, Text and Identity, how identity construction, the subjectness, Muslim subjectness is related to the texts. Again, Quran, Hadith, and other Sunnah, other. And then also around that time, this is in 1997, in 2011, he published the sociological possibility of religion in Turkey. We will come to this. It's a critical research on Alevism in Turkey and so-called Islamic Protestantism. Protestantism. But I will not go into Ayşe Saktember's and Yasin Aktay's texts today. And also a third PhD thesis I supervised is in this university, and it is completed 2 years ago in 2020 by Meral Durmuş. Meral Durmuş's thesis title is 3 Generations of Martyrdom or Veteran Ghazi Status, Root Paradigm Within the Cognitive Map of Political Cultural Turkish Islam. Now, this is translation into English. The thesis is in Turkish, as I said, in Maltepe University, School of Graduate Education. And this is a very recent research into this the Ghazis from the First World War, the Ghazis from Korean War, you know, in the Turkish history, the Ghazis from Cyprus in 1974, the Ghazis in the fight against terrorism. So how each of these Ghazis, and of course also martyrdom versus Ghazi status, veteran status, how it is conceptualized in political, she calls it political cultural Turkish Islam. Actually, she borrows this conceptualization from Sherif Mardin and Lloyd Fowlers. Lloyd Fowlers was my PhD advisor in University of Chicago, and he did a study, as I mentioned before when I was talking about community studies, Edremit, you know. He studied Edremit, and and he tried to conceptualize Islam in Turkey, how Turkish Islam, again in quotation marks, is different from other countries' Islams, let's say. But I will not go into this as well. You know, each of them deserves actually a separate work, you know, a separate week, as a matter of fact, which we don't have. So I will go to our research, you know, to get myself, Recep Şentürk, from Ibn Haldun University. Until a few years ago, he was the president of that university, Ibn Haldun University. Kurtuluş Cengiz, who did his thesis, as I mentioned, in Middle East Technical University, together with Mustafa Şen. Mustafa Şen, I was advisor to Mustafa Şen's doctoral thesis. So Mustafa Şen was advisor to Kurtuluş Cengiz, but I was advisor to Kurtuluş Cengiz when he was writing his MA thesis. And Önder Küçükural, who is now in Ibn Haldun University. So it is not only these four, but other friends as well. So in order to show others, I would like now to share the first page of this report, which is given to TÜBİTAK, because the research is carried out with the support of TÜBİTAK. Now, just allow me again to share my screen with you. Now I go here and let me see which one of these is now which one of this is, because there are four author things. Let me see. I think this one is the first one. Let me share this, and then I will share, no, not this one. I will share this one. Okay, now here it goes. Okay, you see here, social structure and religion in Turkey. This is TÜBİTAK, Technology and Science Council of Turkey. So this council distributes research projects, funds research. Now, I was the director of the team of the researchers, and Recep Şentürk, Kurtuluş Cengiz, and Önder Küçükural were researchers, and the rest were PhD students and MA students in various universities, working in the project as scholarship, supported with scholarship. You know, their MA work or PhD work was supported from the project. Who were they? Gözde Yavuz, for example. Gözde really helped a lot, while I will show you analyzing the quantitative part of it. Gülşah Başkavak, Zöhre Benli, Nülüfer Taşkın, Zeynep Arıkan, in literature review and in field work, and also Sebal Gülen and Pınar Güran. These were our two assistants in this department, in the sociology department. First, Pınar Güran following her, Seval Gülen, they were also in this research project, and they were also faculty members here. So there was a supplementary support from the project to their income, but they were helping me in coordinating, especially the financial aspects, of the research. Okay, so it goes down like that. I will not go into it, but the research project, as you can see, there is an introduction, and there's a long theoretical framework about sociology of religion, especially classical sociology of secularization and the new sociologies of religion after 1960s, and the methodology of the research, and then findings. Now, in the methodology, we had a 3-phase research. It took 3 years. The first phase was participant observation in Kayseri, Erzurum, and Denizli. Kayseri, Erzurum, and Denizli. Our researchers, especially Önder Küçükural ve Kurtuluş Cengiz, they lived there. For example, Kurtuluş Cengiz lived in Kayseri, and Önder Küçükural in Denizli, and another friend was in Erzurum. So they were participant observers, going in, talking with people, and also observing them, participant observer, as you know. And then after having information from these 3 cities, analyzing their observations, their interviews in these 3 cities, we developed a question format, groups of questions to be asked in depth interviews, and this time in 8 cities, 3 cities plus 5 more cities, in addition to Denizli, Erzurum, and Kayseri. We added from the east, Diyarbakır we added, and from the west we added Izmir. From central Anatolia we added Çorum in addition to Kayseri, and from the south Adana, again from the east Mardin. So 8 cities, that interviews, 237 interviews, each of them taking hours, and deciphering them again taking hours. And after that, in 26 cities, we had 1,538 questionnaires administered into a sample. Now let me send this away, and okay, let me send it away. Okay, now I come back. Okay, before I go into further analysis of this, I would like to share a book that came out of this. Just a minute. Now let me just quickly, very quickly show it. And now it was this one. Yes, it is this one. Very quickly. Now this is in Turkish. religiosity in Turkey, and in terms of social tensions, how people in their everyday lives they solve these tensions, and hence they developed modes of life and belief, modes of life in terms of axes, as we will see, in 5 axes of social tensions, 5 social cultural tension areas. How these tensions were resolved, you can read at least 1 chapter of it. It is available from İletişim itself. This is the content of the book, and this is the introduction, and so this is it. Let me send that away. And now let me come back to my my content page in the Blackboard, where I will talk about, I will try to introduce you to this research in various, of course, I mean, it is, as you have seen, it is the report to TÜBİTAK was something 300 pages. The book itself is also something like how many pages? 550 pages. So I will just introduce few findings, but let me do that again visually as well as audioly and visually, and hence audio-visually. Let me do that now. From here, again, let me share my screen with you, and here it is. It is now this one. Okay, now I go into it. You see it, huh? You do. Okay, this is the research project, and this is the abstract, English abstract of it. So, what are the 5 tensions that I just mentioned? Which is also in the title of the book. Of course, while if you have an understanding of Turkey and Islam, there is a tension, you will agree perhaps, between the sacred and the profane. Sacred, and anyway, that is the definition of religion as well. Durkheim defined religion as dividing life into the sphere of sacred and profane, or worldly and the otherworldly, this worldly and otherworldly. Now, the second tension is again endemic into Turkish modernization, or modernization of many third world countries, or modernization in general in the first world or in the second world. How modern institutions, modern structures, modern subjectivities, whatever, actors, collective and individuals, emerged in contrast to traditional, and at least in the Weberian formulation, modern, traditional, and in between charismatic, charismatic, rational, modern. Modern is defined as rational, instrumental, rational, value rational. Anyway, the second tension is between traditional aspects of life and modern aspects of life. The third one, again, very tensionful indeed, public sphere versus private sphere, especially during 1990s and early 2010s, 21st century, early decade of 21st century, this discussion of head covering, whether it should be only in the private sphere or in the public sphere, whether girls with head covered can come to the university, and also in the state institutions, etc., etc. There was this tension, this discussion. The fourth tension area is between this time between the sacred texts, scriptural texts, and living Islam, everyday Islam. It does. To what extent they correspond to each other, living Islam and sacred texts. For example, Ayşe Saktember's book is titled, Living Islam. I mentioned it in the introductory part of this week's lecture. Okay, and the fifth aspect is, again, one of the important aspects of modern life is a use of scientific knowledge. But there is also religious knowledge. Now, if in the same area there is religious knowledge and scientific knowledge, how they will be combined? How believers, Muslims, combine these? How do they solve these tensions in their life? Or maybe they don't feel these tensions, So here, participant observation, depth interviews in 8 cities, and the questionnaire in 25, 26 cities and then here I formulate. Now, the first one of the figures. Now, we used in the quantitative analysis, we used SPSS, social science, SPSS package for social sciences, statistical package for social sciences with quantitative data. But with qualitative data, we use Atlas T. Now, let me make this a little larger so that you will be able to see this diagram figure better, hopefully. Now, are you able to see? Now, here, the in-depth interviews in participant observation, we talk about success in work. In those people who are successful in their work, do they have? Does religion play a role in their success? Now, some people say, yes, it does. Yes, it does. Others say, no, it doesn't. There is that division. Indeed, and there are in between people. Those who doesn't, who says, for example, it doesn't have any role, and then why, then they are divided. And then those who say it has a role, then they are divided. So we go into, we ask people, and then they give their opinion. And then after that, we ask, why do they think so? They give us a and a discourse, you know, their arguments, why they think so, why they think that it's important. So we try to understand their reasoning. Now, I will come back to this with one of theses, PhD thesis, Küçükural's thesis. Now, the second one perhaps is better. Now, how everyday economic activities and religion is related. Everyday economic activities, as you see here, and religion, you know, for how it is for a more secular people and more religious people, and how if they say that religion is not important in everyday life, you know, the logic of everyday economic activities is economic, rational, or commercial, or common sense. But others who say that, especially in buying and selling, how people prefer religious ones, you know, religious ones prefer religious ones, maybe seculars avoid. But one group is flexible in this, but the other group is more strict in taking that more seriously. Okay, and then if we continue, two more in economics, in terms of economics. For example, the tension between the sacred text, the text scripturalist versus living Islam in terms of interest rate, using banks and borrowing with interest. You know, how again four groups emerge here, emerge, and you know, these groups are those who say that you know, the banks cannot be considered, the interest rate in the banks is not usury. You know, it's a part of modern economic system. In the other extreme, there are those interest, whether it is official banks in the banks or not, is usury, and it is forbidden religiously. Usury and thereby interest, faiz in Turkish, is haram, and it is forbidden. So they don't take money, they don't borrow money from the bank. The other two groups, the flexible group, talk with the religious people, you know, the religious advisors, you know. Now, some of them are flexible, and they ask, you know, about these matters, not just interest, but other related economic matters, until they find someone who gives ijazet, permission to take, for example, bank from the bank, borrow money from the bank and invest it. So depending on what kind of investment, etc., the religious advisor gives them permission or not. You know, there are all these discussions in details about them, and you know, in the report, in the research report, and in the book we go into details of this. And then next one is again using religious knowledge about economy and scientific knowledge about economy. Economics versus fiqh about economic matters. And again, in this issue too, there are those, like in explaining nature, we use physics, and explaining economic issues, it has its own logic, and there's a science of it, economics. And there is the other group who says that economics is a man-made system, and it should be formulated in such a way that it will conform with the rules of the religion, of the sacred rules. And there are those in between. Usually these four groups come into picture. Now, as I said, in this research, we take up various issues for the social structure religion relationship. Economics is one area, politics and law is second area, family is gender, is a third area. Areas like this. And this one, this figure here is, in Atlas T, there are so many codes that are related with politics. Politics codes. So for each of these codes, there are so many quotations from deciphered texts of that interviews. So from whenever you focus on a relationship between one code and another, or the topic that code captures, then Atlas T gives you all the quotations relevant to that issue. So you analyze them, qualitative analysis, you divide into topics, domains, subdomains, and you relate the questions and the answers that come to these questions in terms of domains and subdomains, and how are they related to each other, etc. For example, in this figure, it is democracy and Islam, democracy and religion relationship. Let's and democracy, and there is secularism, and for example here there is a group which says that democracy for Islam, it is an instrument. Democracy is an instrument to reach the aims of Islam. That is, there is one group who says that way. Another group says that again, it says that democracy and Islam bağdaşmaz. They don't fit each other. Islam has its own political structure, and it is not related with democracy. So, according to this group, they have to an Islamic political structure should be formulated. Now, there is another group who says it doesn't, again, correspond to each other. They do not, Islam and democracy cannot accommodate each other, but they say that you know, one is more flexible, the other one is more reliance on the dogma, you know. Now, if democracy is not fitting Islam, then democracy should be rejected. Whereas in the other one, democracy should be reformulated in accordance with the rules of the religion. And then those who are more secular, but again believers, they say that there are rules of democracy, you know, human rights, etc., which are almost universal. So they should be followed. And there are those who says that Islam and democracy fit each other very well. There are those as well. Okay, and then if I go further, there is another area, gender and religion. Here, figure 17 here is about whether women can work in the public sphere. In the public sphere, you know, whether women should be at home, you know, whether women's place is home. You know, there we have these propositions that we ask, you know, 5 or 6 propositions in a Likert type of propositions. Remember from I was talking about my research in Çorum, you know, similar kind of statements we asked here too, and there too there are those who says that women can work in the public sphere. If now there are those who says that if husband's income is not enough, can work. But there are others, if they have an education and an occupation, in order to implement, perform their occupation, they have to work. But there are those who says, no, women should be at home taking care of children and husband, and according to religion, they cannot work. Their duty is at home. And there are also discussions in Turkey about clothing of women, and also flirting before marriage. And as you can see in this figure 18, there are so many under groups about women's position in the society. You know, Mahrem somewhere here in the middle. How man and woman being in the same situation, working or being present in the same situation, and what are two positions related to that, and then there is about premarital relationships and about dressing, and then how these converge about women's general tesettür, you know, general clothing, and we in the report as well as in the book, you know, there are details given how each group how do they justify their arguments by going into the nature of man and woman, fıtrat, how the nature of each of them is same or different. Secular people is saying same and different. Islamic strong Muslim believers are saying same and different, and all arguments related or used by each of them. These are discourses. Discourse. Remember from Foucault. How analysis of a culture in the society or ideology in a society. Ideology analysis is a macro kind of analysis. But if you want to go to details, and then you have to use discourse analysis. And Atlas T helps you to carry out this kind of discourse analysis. But even without Atlas T, personally myself, or for example, Bahattin Akşit, she teaches how to analyze the results of in-depth interviews by hand, by identifying again teams, sub-teams, contradictory areas where there are debating areas, agreement areas, disagreement areas, etc., etc. Domains, subdomains, or teams, sub-teams, that kind of analysis. Okay, this much about the qualitative aspect. Now, very briefly, some tables about the quantitative data that comes from 25, 26 cities from 1,538 interviewers. Now, our data is from 2011. We administered it just after 2011 elections. Remember, in 2002 elections, Justice and Development Party came into power, 2002. And then in 2007, a second time came to power. And 2011, after 4 years, a third time, Justice and Development Party got the majority. And right after the elections, we had this interview for 2 months in July and August. And the results is here in the first column. Now, 2 other columns are from a research. Ali Çarkoğlu, is the director of that research in 2006 and 1999, 1 year before the millennium. As you can see here, the basic question asked here is, how do you define yourself? How do you define yourself? From which one below describes your identity best, yourself best? Now, as you can see, national identity, Turkish, those who are saying Turkish qualifies them best was 21% in 1999. Again, more or less same in 2006, 19.4%. But in our research, this nationalist aspect increased to 30%. 30. Now, but secondly, but also not only nationalist, but also being Muslim describing people best also increased from 35% in 1999. You see this table, don't you? Yes, 35.7 in 1999, and then it drops to it increases to 44.6 in 2006 and to 47%. So both nationalist and Muslim percentages increase. The two comes together to 77%. What is the decreasing aspect? Decreasing aspect is citizenship. Republican Turkey citizenship. Türkiye Cumhuriyeti vatandaşlığı. You see, in 1990s, that came out, that emerged as an ideological, cultural solution to nationalism, you know, Kurdish nationalism or Turkish nationalism or other minorities. Not a national or religious identity, but a meta level, above ethnic and national and religious identities. At the citizenship was 34% in 1999. It decreased to 29.9% in 2006 and to 15% in 2011. But in the meantime, identifying themselves as Kurdish increased from 1.2 to 2.7 to 3.3 in 2011. And Alevi also increased from 0.9 to 1.1 and to 1.5, and the others. As you can see, the dominant in 2011 is the first three, you know, Turkish, Muslim, and Turkish nation state citizenship. So that is the first one. And here in the second table, we control this with okay. Now we give the question we ask in the table 8 is what is the ideological position, so political ideological position you feel closest by you know, controlled by settlement place, by rural urban residents, and by gender. Now, as you see, those now people in Turkey, considering yourself as Atatürkçü, is the first, you know, with 68%. Now, in the among the women and men, not much difference. The star means it is not statistically different. Village and urban, rural and urban also is not statistically significant. No difference, you know. The second one, secular position, you know, feeling closer to secular position is 61%, and man feels more secular than woman, whereas there is no difference between village and city. The third one is nationalist, being closer, feeling closer to nationalist position is 61 again, like being secular, and the differences are not statistically significant. Okay. Now the next one is Islamist, being Islamist. Now this is 2011. 55% feel themselves Islamist, and between men and women, women are more Islamist and villagers are more Islamist. Although between men and women, the difference is not statistically significant. Now being muhafazakar, now what is that? Being conservative, being closer to conservative. It goes like that. I will not go into details. The next question we asked is, to what extent you are religious? Religious, in the middle, and not religious. Actually, it was 5-point scale, and then we collapsed that into the first two, 5 and 4, as religious, 3 as in the middle, 1 and 2 as not religious. And then again, we gave differences between men and women, urban and rural, differences in terms of age groups. Now, if you look at being religious, again here, religiousness with this scale now. Women are more religious. In terms of rural, urban, rural are more religious. In terms of age, those who are 70 years old and older, or those who are 55 years and older, 55 is 73.8, and the other one is 72.5. Now, do you see this? Maybe you don't see it much. Okay, let me put it this way, and let me make it a little bit larger so that you will see the percentages better. As you can see, the woman, the village, and 55-69 age group is 73.8, whereas 70 and above, they are almost same actually. Whereas the young are religious on 50%. So from 50% to 73%, there is real difference there from young to old. In terms of income, those who are, in that 2011, 1,000 category, they are most religious. And then in terms of parties, as expected, as you see here. Now let me go to the next one. Now this is there are two statements that that respondents are asked to choose. Now, one statement is the real criterion is being a good human being, a morally good human being. That is the statement. The second one is praying or rituals are very important for religion. So, praying 5 times a day, fasting, and other rituals of religion are a must. Whereas in the other one, what is essential is being a good man. Rituals are not as important. Okay. Now, when you compare again, women thinks that rituals are important, and the villagers think so as well. And in terms of age groups, now 60. Let me see. Those who are again this 59-69 category is really important. 80% of those who are in the age 55-69 say that rituals are important. They should be performed, 5 times a week and others. And in terms of being religiosity, degree of religiosity, those who are religious, strongly religious, think that rituals are important, and those who think that they are not as religious, less religious, only 23.4%. Now, do you see it too? Yes, you do. Okay. And in terms of denomination, the Sunni 69.7, almost 70% of the Sunnis say that rituals are important. 51% of Alevi say it's important, and again, it varies with the parties. Okay, now let me see. Let me continue again with these. Okay, I think it was no, just a minute. Okay, now a few more. Now, what are the opinions about women's place in society? Now, those whose the percentage that says a woman's place is home. Remember, there was a diagram, a figure about that in the analyzing qualitative data. Now here we see that 39.7% says that women should be at home in 2011, but just about the same percentage says that no, they don't agree that women should stay at home, and there are 19% who are in the middle. Okay, the second percent is similar to the first one. Women shouldn't work outside of home. Again, but here the percentage who says disagree with this statement goes up to something like 44.7%. Let me see. Do you see that? Maybe if I put this here this way, you will see it better. Okay, now shouldn't work. Now that women should cover their head is 37.8%, but those who doesn't agree with this is 28.7%, but the middle, those who are in the middle, is about the same, 26.9%. Now, a woman having children, instead of working outside home, should stay at home and look after the children. Now, the highest, one of the highest percentages here, 42.5% agrees with this statement. Now 29.8% doesn't agree. And then there's also this statement in our questionnaire: if there is unemployment in the country, priority should be given to men's employment. Now that's the highest. 45.8% of the sample says that priority should be given to men. Now there is one more table. Let me see here. I think that is the last table that I have chosen. Let me see whether you are able to see it, because it's a okay, let me start here. Let me make it a little larger so that you will see the percentages. Now, it says, the statement says, a man and a woman before marriage, can they be friends? Bir erkek ile bir kadının evlilik öncesi arkadaşlık, friendship between a man and a woman. Now, those who says that they find this normal, is 51% in the city, but it drops to 34% in the village, 34.7. Now, man and woman, same percentage, 47%. You see that? 47%, both of them. Now, in terms of education, now those who have university education is the highest, with 68.6%. They say that this is normal. Next, before the education level, next higher education is close to it, 66.7%, and high school graduate 62.7%, and then junior high school 57%. Elementary school, it drops to 37%, and then those who are illiterate, with the illiterate, it is 26.9% finds this friendship between a man and a woman normal. Why did it go like this? Let me see, and let me bring this down so that you can see in terms of age, what is the situation in terms of age. As you can see, the youngest group with 63.4 finds it normal, and the oldest 70 and over 29%. So it goes down from 63 to 21. And in terms of Alevi Sunni, the Sunni 46% finds it normal, whereas Alevi 59%. And then those who are non-religious, 67%. Those who are religious, 40%. And in terms of party membership, close to each other, the highest with Republican People's Party, and next one is Nationalist Movement Party, and Justice and Development Party. Okay, so this is the ones that we also studied now. Okay, let me go back here, and let me go to one of the theses, PhD theses by Önder Küçükural. It is an empirical study of religious reasoning and its implications for democracy. Now, this is Önder Küçükural's 2014 doctoral thesis. Now, Önder Küçükural uses the same material that we collected and we reported there, but he focuses, now let me just show table of contents. You will see that he focuses on this Islam and democracy debate, and how those who says Islam doctrine embraces democracy, or the opposite. Now he goes into tensions, 5 tensions that I already mentioned, transcendental, mundane, traditional, modern, etc. And then now novel in this thesis, he goes into various types of religious reasoning. Now, the first one is principled religious reasoning. The other one is utilitarian religious reasoning. Second one. Third one is communitarian religious reasoning. And the fourth one is deconstructivist religious reasoning. Really, these are, he goes into analysis of interview material with the definition of these 4 in such a way that it is really impossible. And then in his thesis, he goes into the methodology, and then how communitarian religious reasoning goes together with performativity, rule following, etc., etc. I will not, this is his content. And then here how he identified these 4 types of religious reasoning. And then, for example, an illustration which I made red here. I think you see it. Or let me see, it is too large, so you cannot read it. Let me make it smaller so that you can read and you can see its entirety. Now, one more. If I make it one more here, okay, I think now you can say. When the issue is politics or economy, I find that many participants put the arguments along the lines of deconstructivist reasoning that lead to doctrinal flexibility. However, when the issue is gender, most of the participants resort to communitarian reasoning. That is, it is hardly possible to hear well-thought, well-reasoned argumentations on the place of women in the public sphere. It is mostly what do they think, the community think. What the community thinks, they think. But in economics or in politics, they care less about what the society, community thinks, but they develop their own reasoning. The more articulate interviews adopt the third type of rationality, that is principled reasoning. Their arguments legitimize the current status of women in society through literal readings of the Quran, and of the Quran the more articulate interviews adopt the third type of rationality, principally. Their arguments legitimize the current status in society through literal readings of Quran are not open to new interpretations. It was mostly women who voiced the most emancipated views regarding their own conditions, and they use deconstructivist regarding and as diversity in religious interpretations. That is, they use deconstructivist type of reading. And then he talks about how he received the data from our research and what issues he focuses upon, and he gives examples into principled reasoning or deconstructivist reasoning. Now, the fourth case is the participants who says that he believes that the truths about physical world are to be reached through scientific knowledge, and the truths about our souls are to be reached through religious reasoning. In saying this, he is rejecting one single source of truth for everything and bridging the tension between religious and scientific knowledge by treating them as separate spheres. He is employing deconstructivist reasoning by allowing for the possibility of multiple truths and multiple realms of knowledge. What multiple realms of knowledge? Really, I put here, you will go into them and you will hopefully, you can read the material that I have chosen from the thesis, or you might go into the thesis. Now, one last example is that now one man, okay, we have to think of religious reasoning patterns as relational rather than fixed. This means that we cannot identify a mode with a particular individual. We cannot say this individual is deconstructivist or principled or communitarian or utilitarian. Religious thinking modes resemble automobile gears. Individuals maneuver in them as they suppose it is needed. The first gear, second gear, fourth or fifth. Let me clarify this point with an example. During the group conversations over tea in Erzurum, a middle-aged man reproachfully lamenting and lamented that the fact that we are nearing doomsday, ahir zaman. Why? Because people are not fasting during Ramadan and they are eating. They are eating in the restaurants. Restaurants are open during the daytime, etc. A younger man intervened and said that there are people who complain that they cannot find an open place to eat. Just the opposite. Yeah, he's complaining that there are open restaurants. The other one is saying that no, there are not enough open restaurants. Some people are complaining about it for the reason other they cannot fast. For a reason or other they cannot fast. In some cases it is because they are sick. Others are travelers. Others are tourists in the city, but they are not Muslims, so they have to eat. But all restaurants are closed. This speech was eloquent and appealing enough to the group that it induced a spontaneous deliberation among all the people present. The relaxed environment and mutual exchange of ideas in the context of warm, friendly conversation over a tea gave rise to the older man change his mind, and said, "Oh, I had not thought of it this way. You are right." So, he agreed with the younger man when you discuss. Now, the second thesis, very quickly, is by Kurtuluş Cengiz, and the title of the thesis is "The Tale of Industrialization in a Small Town in Turkey, Hacılar town in Kayseri." He completed his thesis in 2012. Now, he also used the material from our research, but he focused on religion and modernization or economic development relationship. He started with the Weberian thesis, the Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism, and he criticized that, and then he gave a historical sociological account of development in this town, Hacılar, and then how production, our structure of production, organization of production, to what extent religion is a factor, to what extent other social, historical, economic, cultural, other cultural aspects are important. For example, he thinks that in Kayseri, in Hacılar, there was a banditry period where, you know, there is rebellion, enterprising in a second period, and in older times there were minorities like Armenians, you know, they also introduced them, and then capitalism, although this the debates about Islam influencing economic development came into mass media during 90s and 2000s, you know, in the millennium, but development of economic development in Kayseri is earlier, you know, during 1940s and 50s, 60s. So he goes into dynamics of this development, and for example, here he says that Weber's Protestant ethic thesis itself, when applying to Kayseri and to Hacılar, is problematic from the factual and epistemological perspectives. Therefore, in a nutshell, I think the theoretical arguments have a very weak analytical power, you know, that religion influences economic behavior, to explain economic development and industrialization process regarding my objective. Both the historical development process of Hacılar I described for pages and data I gathered from my interviews on the perception of religion by the industrialists show that there is not a Puritan or Calvinist kind of religious or moral orientation among them. So this Calvinist Islam thesis, he rejects really Calvinist Islam or Protestant Islam. He rejects that. The industrialists are organizing their business according to material conditions of the world. Namely, the problem is not people who are working with a moral or religious motivation and become capitalists at the end of the day. On the contrary, the entrepreneurs are working with ambition and resentment, and they voluntarily become capitalists. The role of religion here is just to justify and legitimize these activities in a broader framework and to use the religious networks for their benefit. So my argument is that it is the capitalism rather than Calvinism that explains the development of Hacılar. So he really goes into further and further details and explains, for example, here, first of all, religion plays a connective role as one of the main elements. Do you see it? Now let me make it a little bit. Yes, you see it. It plays a connective role as one of the main elements of organismic, solaristic, competitive, let me take this a little here, and conservative collective identity in Kayseri. Besides, its functions as the articulating principle of conservative identity with a neoliberal economy. As noted by Tual, Islam is legitimizing capitalism, indeed neoliberalism, and makes it hegemonic in the eyes of the masses. So it serves for the deepening of capitalistic relations and seems to continue to do this for a while, and continues actually as the underlined by Eli Açık. Kayseri has been a city and development in Hacılar. It had almost no role in the development dynamics. However, in parallel to the conjectural developments in the world and Turkey, the religiosity has been increased with 1980s, and this found its reflection as the growing conservatism in some of the Turkish cities, including Kayseri. The religious orders, which already had the support of the state in behind, got into the contact with the traders, industrialists, businessmen, and increased their influence during this period. In time, these religious networks intertwined with commercial and political ties and made some positive contributions on the industrialists. So, though limited, it is not reasonable to deny these kinds of contributions. But, you know, it is a limited kind of contribution. Instead of, as the Calvinist Muslims' thesis claim, you know, it is not religion that caused capitalist development in Hacılar or in Turkey in general. So the last sentence towards, you know, 315 from 317 pages, you know, if you read that part, the people live according to their material interests in their daily lives and economic relations as usual. With the increasing wealth and money, religion likens capitalism. Religions becomes similar to capitalism rather than vice versa, rather than capitalism acquiring religious characteristics. Capitalism has its own dynamics. Okay, I think we can stop here. But before I end this, let me show actually Kurtuluş Cengiz's thesis became a book. Let me show that book and then let me end this lecture. Again, let me share my page here and detail. Okay, where is it? Let me see. This one. Okay, now here in this, the title of the book now, of the thesis, when it is being transformed into a book, is Ya işte Fabrikalaşak. Ya işte Fabrikalaşak. Now let's establish factories. Factories, you know, they said people. Here it is. Ya işte Fabrikalaşak. Anadolu sermayesinin oluşumu. Development of Anatolian capital with the case study of Kayseri Hacılar town, and there is the content, table of contents of the book, like of the thesis, and then there is few pages that you can see of the book, and hence I think I can stop here and ask you whether you have any questions, and in the meantime let